r/AskReddit, nsfw, what you know what, just to be safe thing you did end up saving your ass later? Not my ass, but my mom's. She and I were home alone and I was getting ready to go to a party. I came upstairs and found her with the carbon monoxide detector in pieces on the coffee table. She said it was beeping, and apparently once years ago in our last house one was malfunctioning and giving a false alarm, so I guess she just assumed it was happening again. I shrugged it off and continued getting ready. I was about to leave but something was nagging at me. She was insisting it was fine. After some arguing with her I said no. We are calling the fire department. So I did. They came, and the levels of carbon monoxide were so high in the basement they said anyone sleeping down there would be dead already. Our cats were vomiting from the poisoning and we didn't realize. I guess the filter on the furnace was so clogged it was pumping out carbon monoxide. One of the firefighters pulled me aside and said if I hadn't called I likely would have come home to my mom dead in her bed. Not my ass, but I was getting ready for school whilst mom was vomiting in the bathroom. She said it was just a stomach bug and to just go to school, but mentioned her arm hurt. Something didn't sit right, so I called the ambulance from downstairs. They arrived and took her into the ambulance. She then proceeded to have 3 cardiac arrests and needed defibrillated each time. A double bypass later and she was up and about within a month. Paramedics told me she would have died 5 minutes after I left, if I hadn't called. Had some weird achy symptoms and went to the doctor even though I figured I was probably overreacting. Turns out I had cancer. Putting only one of my work shoes in the hotel safe along with my valuables literally has stopped me in my tracks from forgetting my wallet and passport in a different country. Was delivering pizza in a sketchy block of town late at night. Huge apartment complex with multiple buildings. Walking up to the front door I noticed a couple guys wearing dark clothing about 100 feet behind me walking in my direction. Delivery was on the 2nd floor and by the time I reached her door I heard the main door of the apartment complex open and close. She used a CC for the order and tipped in cash, so when I was putting the receipt into my bag, where I kept my cash, I actually pulled the rest of the cash out and stuffed it into my inner jacket pocket just to be safe, leaving just the change I had that night in the bag. Started to head down the stairs back out to my car and 2 guys jumped out from behind the stairs and the one had a gun pointed at me and told me to give them the money. I quickly handed them my bag filled with quarters and they took off towards the back entrance of the apartment complex. I never ran so fast in my life back to my car. I wanted to make sure I was as far away as possible before they realized they robbed me of $3.50 in quarters. $5 breakage insurance on a rental surfboard. Broke that fucker clean in half in my first 10 minutes. My friend and his wife were having their first child. They had gotten a big packet of information and paperwork to fill out before the due date to make things easier. There were also brochures for genetic testing and other things that could be done, and one of the things was about saving the cord blood. My friend said that he looked at the front of the brochure and his wife asked if they should do it. It is not cheap, a couple $1,000 to save it and a few hundred a year after that, and my friend said yes. Their daughter was born later that year. 3 years after her birth, they had a boy, and he was born with an immune disorder, no white cells, and his big sister's cord blood and stem cells were used as a treatment. My dad lost his glasses once. He was going to just use his old prescription but last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turns out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough they said he probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when then did. Lived in Baltimore at the time. Pulled up outside my place after getting off a late shift and had to get a backpack out of my trunk before going in. I noticed a group of teenaged kids hanging out on the corner and thought nope. Called my roommate to come watch me walk to the door. About 10 minutes later a girl comes running down the street bleeding saying she got jumped by the group of kids for no reason. Stay alert out there y'all. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around, but I'd just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fucked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face, so I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later, he fell like toddlers do and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that, lol. Not me, bit a co-worker. Was trying to separate some railroad ties with a crowbar as part of his yard work for the day, and when it popped, a nail flew and embedded itself in one of the lenses of his safety glasses he threw on because he had them for work. He keeps them on his desk as reminder. PPE is not just for the workplace, folks. I dropped my high school girlfriend off, then for some reason I locked the passenger door. Not 10 minutes later I was stopped at a red light and some scummy looking dude tried to open up the door. I have no idea why I locked that door after she got out. I really didn't have a habit of that. No idea what would have happened if that guy got in my truck. Saved the GPS location of my vehicle on Google Maps before exploring a national forest with a road trip buddy. We grabbed some fishing poles and head out towards the nearest water location on our map to hopefully catch a couple fish. Turns out it was a swamp, not a lake, and we got so incredibly turned around it could have ended very badly. We really didn't go that far in from where we parked but somehow ended up on the other side of the swamp without realizing it. Drizzling rain, mosquitoes, bear tracks, and the sun started going down before we found the car. Without the GPS coordinates saved, it would have been a cold, wet night in the woods at a minimum, and more than likely a search and rescue required situation. I had a female patient coming for I-131 therapy. Patient must be not pregnant, and to make sure we do a blood test 1 day prior to dosing. I checked the results on screen, that was negative. I printed it out and put it in the patient file just in case, although we went paperless years earlier. After giving her radiation safety instructions and discharging her, she came a couple of days saying that she was late. The doctor inserted another pregnancy blood test and came out positive. The lab technician went to the previous negative blood test and changed it to positive. Haven't I printed the test, it would look like I dosed the patient while pregnant and could get fired. Staff before this incident used to make fun of me being paranoid. After this incident everyone started printing the results face with tears of joy. Because a lot of people asked, and to answer their questions ETA, I reported it to the head of department. He immediately involved the medical physics department and they calculated the dose to the fetus and found out she had to abort because the baby will be severely mutated. So they involved the OB/GYN also. Last thing I knew that a huge investigation was carried out and the patient filed an official complaint. I don't know what happened later. Everything completely changed. Policies and procedures / hospitals information system / quality department was established / risk management department was established, etc. That was back in the beginning of 2007. The system was installed in the end of 2006. That was the first time anyone used an electronic system. ETA 2, I wrote the reply and went to sleep and woke up never thinking that this would blow up. Wow. Thank you everyone for upvoting, and thank you kind stranger for the award. Thanks for everyone who wished me a happy cake day. You all made my day. Folded hands. Edit 3, that story happened in MENA, Middle East and North Africa. Normally I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure, but this one time when I was younger I was hanging with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys, I thought, nah, I don't trust these guys and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was passenger. One of the high school boys was driving, they'd had a serious crash and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe of all the days I decided not to go with the flow, it probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close but she never came right and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Snow chains at the bottom of the mountain. A bunch of cars passed me on a clear road on the way up with several warnings all the way up. I saw a local throwing on chains with no snow in the area. I decided to be safe and put them on. 30 minutes later I was in one of the worst snow driving conditions I've ever seen. Whiteout conditions in a snowstorm that eventually resulted in the complete shutdown of the roads. I passed car crash after car crash with just enough traction to feel somewhat comfortable moving 15 miles an hour. Anyone heading to Tahoe needs chains and chains that fit. Don't fuck around. I don't care if you have a 4-wheel drive. Driving through Tahoe and Mammoth during snowstorms is no joke. Literally sunny with no clouds to blinding white darkness in an hour. Edit, one more thing. If you find yourself near Heavenly and Siri sends you to a snowed over hill that feels too steep, turn around. Unless you have the right setup you aren't gonna make it. Snow chains or not, you will slide. Just take the Harris gondola if it's that bad. If you don't already have your own gear, try another resort. Heavenly is uniquely bad for rentals and beginners in general. Backing up computer files onto an external drive on a regular basis. Power goes out one afternoon, and I was the only one not profusely sweating. I forwarded an email to my non-work address so that after I left and anonymously reported my employer to the state I couldn't get stuck with the blame for shit. Learned CPR and first aid. Had to give CPR to a family friend when she collapsed from a heart attack and thankfully she was brought back after being down for 15 minutes. She only had minor memory problems and mostly just couldn't remember that day. She's still here and kicking years later. One day I was attempting to make carioca for the first time, a kind of Filipino fried mochi, and after I popped them in the oil, I settled in and watched them carefully. I never wear an apron whilst cooking, but for some reason I figured why not this time, and as soon as I stepped out of range of the fryer, they all exploded. Turns out, carioca can form an impermeable shell when fried, so pressure built up inside until they popped and sprayed hot oil all over the kitchen. Of course, I was safely away reaching for an apron and was completely dumbfounded. Made sure to punch some holes in all subsequent batches. Of course, once I cleaned the kitchen, I ate them and they were delicious. 10/10 highly recommend. Edit. For the curious, https://penlosangpinoy.com/carioca recipe/. Pro tip, don't let them explode. When I was a student I'd do my own work on my car to save mechanic bills. One day, after changing brake pads, I was driving on the motorway at 100 km/h, the freeway at 60 miles per hour for our American friends, and felt a slight shuddering through the steering wheel. Given you're not supposed to stop on a motorway unless it's a real emergency, I was reluctant to pull over to check if anything was wrong. Though having only worked on the car that morning, I decided I'd check, just to be safe. Turns out I hadn't even finger tightened the wheel nuts, only threaded them about a half turn each. Edit grammar. Grabbed a helmet when riding a bike down a steep hill as a kid. Normally didn't bit I ended up falling at top speed and breaking my helmet and chipping 3 teeth. Could have been my head that was broken. Somehow, it randomly occurred to me one day to purchase pet insurance for my dog. Some months later, my dog suffered a severe back injury, and needed surgery to reverse the paralysis. It was expensive out of pocket, but without the reimbursement from insurance it would have been way worse. Edit, back taxes. Here he is post-surgery, standing by himself, and for more recent pics, here he is sleeping and looking goofy. Most of my dog pics are of him asleep, since otherwise he moves around so much, it just looks like a blur. Edit 2, lots of people asking what breed he is. We think he's an Australian Shepherd. Possibly a mix, he was a rescue so not 100% sure. He also has a condition called double merle, caused by poor breeding practices. That's why he's all white, with black spots on his face and paws, with super light blue eyes. If you look closely in the first pic, you can see his pupils are asymmetrical. Double merle dogs commonly have eye abnormalities, and can have some level of blindness and deafness. Lolo has pretty good eyesight, but is completely deaf. There are a few other dog breeds he looks similar to: Border Collie, German Shepherd, Swiss Shepherd, etc. But since he's a double merle, both his parents must have had the merle color pattern, which those breeds don't have. So, I conclude he must be an Aussie. When I look up pics of other double merle Aussies, they look just like him. I think Lolo just happens to also have other traits that don't fit the breed standard, like a long tail, upright ears, and large size. He's 60 to 70 pounds, at the upper limit for the breed. The lack of coloration also gives his fur a different texture, crazy and curly instead of straight and smooth, which is why he's extra fluffy. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed this video and subscribe to never miss an upload.